Hello and welcome to the weekly commodity market update. I'm Brownfield's Will Robinson, joined as always by the University of Missouri's Ben Brown. How's it going, Ben?
It's going well. How are you, Will? Did you have a good
I'm
trip?
yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I'm a little bit tired. So this past weekend, my older sister got married. So, it was a great weekend to have an addition into the family. And so really excited about that. But I am a little bit of, exhausted. Drove back from Missouri to Ohio today, and yeah, trying to recoup.
Speaking of sibling weddings, well, have you ever heard? I'd be interested if any of our viewers out there have heard of this tradition, I guess is what you want to call it. If the younger sibling gets married before the older sibling,
Uh-huh.
have you heard the story that the older sibling's supposed to dance in a trough? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I've heard too. You're supposed to either dance in a trough or you're supposed to dance with a broom.
Oh,
And the dance,
okay. I haven't heard the
yeah,
broom, but I heard the
yeah.
trough. My younger sister got married before I did, and so people were telling me this, but I'd never heard of this before.
Well, did
So
you
if
do
our
it?
viewers out there have good stories to tell, put them in the comments. We'd be happy to laugh along with you.
Well,
But
did you do it?
yeah, well, of course, you have to. It's tradition. If somebody tells you it's tradition, it's tradition.
There you go.
Actually, yeah, we didn't make a big deal of it, but yeah.
Oh, good deal.
It was
So,
Rachel's day. I knew the role I had to play. I was to be docile and compliant.
yeah, all in good fun. So,
Yep.
some quick adjustments here on a week that is a little bit thrown off by the holiday today. So, no reports coming out from USDA or other government agencies. But looking at the markets right now, December 23 corn was flat on the week at 488. December 24 corn down 1 cent at 516. November 23 soybeans are down 13 cents at 1264. November 24 soybeans down 17 cents at 1250. Soybean oil for December was adjusted, excuse me, down 3.5 cents to 53.93. That's cents per pound. Looking at soybean meal by the short ton for December, it was flat at 374.60. December wheat for the 2023 year up 8 cents at 572. July 24 wheat up 9 cents at 640. And then that crude oil contract for November dropped $2.64 at 84.60. So, Ben, not a lot of movement outside of that crude oil contract. So maybe a little bit of energy fluctuation there.
Sure. And that energy complex there, it's probably worth noting that we were down even more than that to start the day today. Crude oil had fallen 5, $6 last week on negative economic pressures and concerns about global demand. But then, as attacks in Israel from Iran picked up this weekend, the crude oil market this morning popped up $3, over $3 on the day. So, we could be looking at an even bigger drop had we had that not had that bombing this weekend.
So some different fluctuation there, and as you see that maybe a little bit of gain today, it's kind of interesting to see maybe what we'll see moving forward into this week. If you'll see kind of return to some, I guess, support coming back for crude oil or not. But today we're really going to focus on the upcoming USDA supply and demand estimates, that WASDE report coming out near the end of this week. Ben, looking at the September numbers coming out in this October. What's really of note that farmers and ranchers need to be paying attention to in this report, as it is kind of a harvest time report now?
Sure. Well, so a lot of people that are just looking at those bottom line numbers in the WASDE report might be shocked to see corn stocks come down, or at least anticipated. I anticipate them to come down in October compared to September. Um, Part of the reason, or the biggest part of that reason, is we got that grain stocks report there at the end of September that represented September 1 grain stocks, was showing about 90 million bushels lower than what was originally forecasted. USDA now gets that opportunity to work those marketing year ending grain stocks into their balance sheet and carry that all the way through. And so, even with some anticipated, reductions in supply on the corn side due to lower yields, the lower grain stocks coming into the year, it still suggests that there's a little bit of demand softening still happening, and that we could see USDA cut the corn export number just a little bit. So I think those are probably the two things I'm looking for. Do we see any changes in that national average yield? do we see any changes in the corn export number coming into Thursday?
Well, looking at just the corn stocks, maybe some continued tightening within this report here. How do you expect that to interact with the market at harvest time, when we might have more corn coming online? So maybe that might signal to elevate prices, but again, generally this time of year is when prices are starting to slide downward a little bit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have felt that we have found the bottom in the corn market, and may even see a little bit of a rally here over the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure I'm in that camp yet, and I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons why I'm not in that camp is we're starting to get into some states harvest wise where the expectation is that the corn is pretty good, and certainly early indications are that it's maybe even a little bit better than what some people had originally expected. So I think as we move north, and harvest starts to really roll, I think maybe we start to see some better yields that put a little bit of downward pressure on that market. But it is true that we've largely traded in a sideways pattern for the last 2+ months. And at some point it'll break out. A lot of people think it'll break out to the top end. With some of the reductions that we've seen in the soybean complex, that certainly takes away some of the pressure on the corn market that it has to rally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another aspect of that there as well.
Well, and looking, you talked about the trade market earlier, looking at the tone that we've really been seeing, coming into the end of last marketing year, coming into the early stages of this marketing year. A lot of that tone's been set by, South American production and availability and competitive prices there. So, what might be the timeline, looking at from a U.S. perspective, on, when the U.S. might become more competitive in that market again? Because you're going to have to see, the adjustments of the prices by a pretty wide gap on how much South American crops are I guess, outpacing U.S. crops when it comes to cost, right? So, how big is that gap right now, and what will it take to close that?
Well, it's gotten pretty close. We've had periods of time over the last couple of weeks where we have been competitive, at least in terms of a physical quantity perspective. But we've seen some struggles in getting grain down the river. We've seen some logistical issues of getting U.S. exports through the Panama Canal. Those continue to add cost. Do I think that we can be competitive here in the next couple of weeks for December and January delivery? Sure, I do, and I think we can see, some more sales of U.S. ag products, whether that's in the Chinese market, whether that's into the Mexico market. Mexico's been active buyers here the last couple of weeks of especially corn, and I think that could continue as what they deem to be relatively low price, lower prices. And so I do think that there's some possibility there to see some of the export market pick up, especially for January and December delivery.
Well, Ben, looking at this kind of offset week again with the lack of reports coming out today, coming out on Monday rather, as a lot of people will be viewing this on Tuesday, Wednesday, and afterwards. What should farmers and ranchers be paying attention to? How will this affect them?
Yeah, so the big reports of the week are on Thursday, October 12th. We got USDA reports. We've got a series of Foreign Ag Service reports that come out Thursday. People are probably less familiar with those Foreign Ag Service reports, those global trade numbers, but I would argue that this time of year, those become very important as we start to think about production globally. So those come out on Thursday at 11 o'clock Central Time. The other kind of unique reports coming up next Monday, we have the National Oilseed Processors Association. I'll be very interested to see if we see a correction and a return to higher crush volumes here in September compared to what we saw in August.
Ben, for being a self-proclaimed wheat guy, I feel like you really love the NOPA report more than any other report.
It's fun.
All right. Well, as always, a lot of great information for all our viewers and listeners out there, Ben, so I appreciate that. Viewers and listeners, if you'd like to learn more about our program or our sister program, the Weekly Livestock Market Update, you can do so at brownfieldagnews.com. Ben, thanks again. I'm Will Robinson on Brownfield.